Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome, Leanne. We are here, famous Leanne Morgan, comedian. How are you doing today?
Oh, you angel, I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to be with you, David.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So you're going on tour. That's amazing. I was just wondering before we kick things off if you could maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, my darling. Okay, well, I am uh probably one of the few grandparents out touring all over the United States. In theaters, in these beautiful theaters. I have done comedy 22 years, raised 3 children, got my first grandbaby, and honey, I was about to give up. Not, I don't want to say give up. I was about to let it go because I knew I was going to have a grandbaby. And then this blew up here at 53 years old after doing it this long. And now I'm about to turn 57. But anyway, I've been on a 100-city tour across the United States, and I'm probably about 80 dates in.
Wow. Yeah, you could pass as 18.
You angel.
That's awesome. Wow. So what? Uh, I suppose how did you get started with comedy? You know, I'm sure you had some inklings that you might want to do that.
I did. But I'm a little country girl from a town of 500 people in Middle Tennessee, outside of Nashville. And my people are farming people that grow dark fire tobacco. That's what we're known for in that region of the South. And so I always was fascinated by Hollywood, and I loved comedy all my life, and I wanted to be a comedian, but I didn't know how in the world to do anything like that. So I went on to college, and I met my husband, and he graduated and I graduated, and he bought a used mobile home business in Bean Station, Tennessee, which is in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And I was pregnant with my first baby, and I wanted some side hustle. I wanted to make a little money, David, so I could get my hair highlighted because my husband's very tight with money. And I started selling jewelry like women sell Tupperware or Mary Kay. And I worked for this jewelry company, and I would go to jewelry parties and schlep all this jewelry. And I was eating dip and brownies with women. And then I was supposed to be talking about jewelry. And instead I talked about breastfeeding and hemorrhoids. And I really developed an act and a shtick. And the company noticed that I was booking so far in advance, like a year in advance, these parties, that they asked me to start speaking at their big things. And that gave me the courage to try to make it and stand up.
Wow. That's incredible. So do you remember what the feeling was like on the first time you went up? Because I'm sure it could
Oh,
be nerve-wracking.
oh, David, I thought I had a tumor. Okay, a little man that owned a sandwich shop said, "Do you want to get up and do stand up?" And I went, "Yes." And he goes, "Can you do an hour?" And I went, "Yes." And I didn't know what I was doing. And I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor that day because I could not move my neck. And I thought that something was horrible wrong with me. And turns out I was scared stiff. I guess that's what that means. And he said, "I don't know what's wrong. I can't find anything." And I was so scared. And I got on stage, and and I have horror feeling of nightmares thinking somebody filmed that and they're going to bring that out someday, because I'm sure it was awful, David. I'm sure it was awful. But anyway, I got through it. Once I got on stage, I was okay. I mean, it was rough, but once I got on stage, it was okay. And then once I did it more and more, just like anything, like if you have speech
Mhm.
class in college, the more you do it, the more it's easier it becomes.
Sure. I mean, I can't imagine doing a full hour out of the gate.
Oh, I know it sucked. I hate to say that word, but I bet it sucked, honey. I
No,
think I
that's
was
awesome.
pulling stuff out of the air about, I don't even know what I told.
So speaking of which, how do you usually come up with your jokes? Where are you looking?
Honey, all these kids and their daddy. My husband is a very anal retentive, type A, overachiever, introvert, And that is so opposite from me. I'm an underachiever, honey, extrovert, talker. And I think that's given me a lot of material. And then just life with these little children, when they were in elementary school, birthing was a big time to talk about all kinds of things. And then they went to elementary school and they played t-ball and somebody pooped on the t-ball field. And then middle school was a dry time, David. Nobody wanted me to talk about them during middle school. Everybody was ultra sensitive and I get it. And then high school, they were like, we don't care what you do. Like they just rolled their eyes at me. And then college, they really didn't care what I did. But you can go through my career and all the material that I've got, it's like all my kids growing up, what's going on with me, what I'm going through, me and my husband. It's all like just, family stuff, which I think is, what people were to relate to.
Mm, mm. And what is when you're, you see the poop on the field, what is your process of writing out the jokes, when it comes
Well,
to
I'm a visual learner. So I remember that it was so that day was, and that's all true. Like my husband is in the mobile home industry and ended up selling that business and then going to work for a big mobile home company. And he's an overachiever. So he was always gone works a bunch of hours. So I was always wrestling 3 babies by myself and had no help. And I don't mean to sound like a martyr, but I didn't have any help, David. Anyway, I remember that night and I can visualize it of my boy playing t-ball and he hated it. He hated it and we made him play and he laid in a fetal position the whole time and on his glove. And my middle child was the one that went out to the field and pulled her panties to the side and pooped on the t-ball field. And then my baby was 13 months old and she was like rummaging through somebody's purse. And I was having to, and I remember at the time thinking, where's their daddy? He's never around when there's a crisis. Cause then I had to go out there and flick that poo out of the way because I didn't want another child to step in it. And I say in my act or think it's a milk dud, but I mean, it was just always when you're having babies, David, and I don't mean to scare you, but there's just, it's always doo-doo and it's, somebody's vomiting or someone's, somebody else vomited in the balls at McDonald's. And I was just always by myself dealing with all this. And my way of handling it was getting humor out of it. I had to, or I was going to bawl my eyes out, David.
Yeah. Well, as fun as that sounds, yeah, I think I will take my time. But
or get you a woman that'll just deal with it, get you a woman that'll just
yeah,
deal
there
with
you go.
it. You don't have to.
So beyond, I guess, the craziness that has happened, with your own family stories, what do you have any fun stories from the road? Anything anything wild out there?
Oh, there's been several wild things out there. The main thing, when I started touring with some other friends, other female comedians, we would do these horrible gigs where, nobody knew who we were, nobody cared. And we would be in these little towns in the South. And I remember this one place we went, the people made us this big meal. Everywhere we went, it was just almost like it was a funeral. When you go to a funeral in the South, there's all this food, like there were deviled eggs. These people would make all this food in the back for us, and I loved it. And I would want to see what they cook. But I remember one time this woman said, we made you a big pasta dish with one of those candles underneath it to keep it hot. And she said, somebody's got to stir this pasta or it's going to stick. And I said, I was the first one to go out and I go, let me go out and do my act. And then I'll come back here and stir it. Like it was, she was so worried about that pasta. She wasn't worried about the show. And I did. I mean, I basically cooked a meal and did my show. But yeah, we had all kinds of little quirky people, that were darling, that would want to feed us and just bizarre people we met on the road. We should have filmed it back then. Nobody was doing all that social media and all that stuff. It was a gold mine back then. I wish we could have done it.
Sure. Well, so speaking of comedians in the past, do you have any favorite comedians or any comedians you draw inspiration from?
Oh my gosh, I love I love so many comedians. You know who I love right now? I mean, I remember thinking Roseanne, when she did Johnny Carson, and you could see her point of view, it blew me away. And I always loved Jay Leno, and I was, oh gosh, David Letterman. Oh, there's so many. Dom Herrera, so many over the years. Little David Spade. I remember I finally got to meet him. I love David Spade. But I grew up on Saturday Night Live and those kind of things. And honey, I'm old enough that I grew up on Carol Burnett, and I remember Phyllis Diller and all those old timey, comedians, and loved them. But now, like I love Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr. I've done some shows with Nate Bargatze, Jeff Foxworthy, and I've done shows together, believe it or not, co-headline.
Awesome.
And that's a dream come true. So, but there's not many that I don't jive with, because I just love comedy. I love stand-up.
Awesome. And I suppose continuing on that, what do you love most about performing now that you've come into yourself?
You angel. Sweet David, you're smart. I don't mean to sound sappy, but now that I've done this all these years, and all my fans have raised children, I think most of them, and are going through the same things I am in life. And it has turned out to be so much sweeter. And I thought when I got started, my goal, I wanted to be a sitcom star. I wanted to be Roseanne, Ray Romano, all those great shows. And I've had television deals for my own sitcom, and none of them have made it, and I would be devastated. And then I look back on it and I think, oh my gosh, I mean, I would have had to move to LA. I couldn't have raised my children in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they wouldn't be who they are. And now what is happening for me is so much sweeter than anything I could have ever imagined, because this audience that I've got now, it's just like being with your best friend. Like I look out there and they bring their husbands. I mean, it's a lot of men come, and I can see couples elbowing each other, but it's like being with your best friends and people in every town. I look out there and I think I'd be best friends with these women. We'd be going to Jazzercise, honey. And then we go to lunch, and then we go to TJ Maxx. It's like, it's come into something that is so much sweeter and more even than stand-up comedy. It really has. And I do think, David, and I don't mean to get philosophical, but I think that nobody is speaking to my demographic. And I think that's why I've hit this niche, is that, Hollywood kind of ignores middle-aged women out in the middle of the United States. And there's not really anybody speaking to them. And I think that I've hit that, and it is an honor, because they are darling, honey. They send me recipes for my little elderly mama, and stuff for my grandbaby, and it's just been really sweet.
Awesome. And I have to ask, since we are a local magazine, what's your favorite spot in Florida? Have you been to South Florida?
Oh, my darling. Okay. I've never been to Miami. I love the Keys. I've only gotten to go twice, and I love the Keys, and I love Naples, Florida. I thought was beautiful. And I've been to Jacksonville. On this tour, I don't get to see anything. I just go in. I feel like Elvis when he said, I go in everywhere, but I go to every place, but I've never gotten to see anything. But when I vacation, I think Naples is stunning, old Naples. And and my family goes to 30A, which is up on the Gulf. But because we drive in a car and everybody gets car sick, so we don't go way down far. But but I've also been to Fort Myers, and I thought those people were darling, and all that orange juice. And they hunt those hogs. I mean, just fascinating. All of Florida, I think, is beautiful. And I told you before we got on here, I want to live in Florida part-time when I can. If something big time happens to me, I'm going to get somewhere to live in Florida, honey.
Well, brace yourself for when you meet some people in Coral Springs. No, we're a good
fun?
group. That's one way of putting it. One way of putting it. No, we're good people.
I don't know
here.
anything about Coral Springs.
Yeah, no, it's a relatively new city. You know, been around 50 years or so. Um, Kind of an expansion from, of course, the South and Miami. Um, but yeah, it's very modern. I like the people are generally speaking very nice. It's a nice place. I kid. Um, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about your upcoming show at the Coral Springs Performing Arts Center.
Oh, my darling. Okay, I'm gonna have little Karen Mills with me, and people, if they watch me, they'll know I call her Little K, and we've been traveling together on and off since 2004, and she'll open the show, and she's a pro, a headliner and a pro. And then I'm pretty long-winded, David. They need to empty their bladder, honey, before I go on stage because I'm long-winded, but I think what they're gonna find is they're gonna say, "Oh my gosh, is she spying on me and my husband? Oh my gosh, that's my son? Oh, that's my daughter. That's what people tell me. It's very relatable, and I hope that they come away feeling joyful. I think they will. I'm not political. I'm not, you know, I don't say anything that's I think is offensive. So it's just a good time.
Awesome. Well, I've held you here, Leanne. Um, is there somewhere that people should follow you online? I see you have a YouTube channel that's uh, flourishing right now.
Oh, you angel, is it? I barely look at it, my darling. I'm sitting here having to go to Meta Spas and get my beard shaved off. All right, let me see. They can go to leannemorgan.com. There's all that social media stuff, TikTok and Leanne Morgan Comedy on Instagram. And I don't tweet often, David, because I think it's mean. But I'm on all that stuff. But Leanne Morgan Comedy and leannemorgan.com. And yeah, they can go and see if they dig me. And I'm trying to lose weight. I'm hoping that I'm a little thinner for y'all by the time I get there.
Awesome. Well, you will be if you step outside of the car for just a second. You know, you'll shed that off. You know.
Is it too hot? Is it still hot down there?
Yeah. No, I saw one of your videos. It was titled "Summer Goes By Too Fast." You know, in Florida, it's like, yeah, I don't know, not fast enough. You know.
Yeah, that's why I know you're probably right. I know y'all sit and just heat all the time, but that's why I want to be with y'all in the winter. And then I'll be
Sure.
back up here in Tennessee in our beautiful fall. And our winter's not that bad, but I dream of being in Florida during the winter. Well, you don't, honey. Thank you, David. I've got two daughters that if you are interested in getting married, honey, I think they're going to be fertile and they've got thick ankles. They can work in the fields.
Well, thank you. I look forward to maybe meeting them someday.
Hey, my darling, look at them online. They're pretty. Okay. Thank you, David.
Sure, my pleasure, Leanne. Thank you. And yeah, everyone go check her out at the Coral Springs Performing Arts Center. We'll share the link and check her out.
Thank you, sweet David. I want people to know I'm down in a dark basement because my Wi-Fi only works down here. That's how old I am. Okay, my darling.
All right, Leanne. I'll stop.